Hey there, nation. Welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Chiefskate, and we're another edition of Necromundays. This time it is Battle Report number 48 of our Necromunda Dominion campaign, and this is a continue on for our little mini campaign, Meat for the Grinder. In case you're unaware what our little mini campaign's about, what ended up happening is that we've established 9 brand new territories within our current campaign system, and the reason why is because we have 2 brand new gangs that are joining us, even though it's kind of late in the campaign, they're joining us anyways. We have a Corpse Grinder cult as well as a Slave Ogryns cult gang as well. And the reason why we're doing that is because my buddy Iron Major, who makes all the terrain on our channel, wanted to play, so we're like, hey, alright, no problem. So we just added more territories. So we're doing another occupation phase where the winner of each scenario manages to get another snag piece of territory on that part. And this one is actually a multiplayer scenario from the original rulebook of Necromunda that's called Gang Moot, and is fought between my 2 friends, Smell Like Febreze, Sergeant Sigmarine, Warlord Ace, and as well as myself. My friend Smell Like Febreze is playing the Chain Breakers, a Slave Ogryns gang. Sergeant Sigmarine is bringing the Sleeping Dogs of House Delaque. Warlord Ace is bringing 9/11 of House Saar, and I am bringing the Jury of House Cawdor. So we'll be throwing it down in a good old-fashioned battle royale as 4 different gang leaders try to talk out their differences into being a massive ambush. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for our gangs for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, so let's go and talk about the scenario rules for this one. The scenario rule is called Gang Moot on this one. For crews, each of the crews gets 1 leader as well as D3 plus 5 randomly selected fighters that will occupy on the battlefield. For the deployment, all 4 leaders will be centered in the middle 6 inches of the battlefield center, and then after that, all the players take turns deploying the rest of their fighters one at a time anywhere on the board, at least 12 inches away from the leader and as well as 6 inches away from a deployed fighter, which means that that includes your own friendly deployed fighters as well, so there's 6 inches between everybody. So because that kind of forces you to spread out your troops all over the place and just makes it really, really interesting as well. Pretty much the objective is to be the very last gang standing. The special rule in this one is called Parlay, which means at the start of the game, only the leaders are ready. When a fighter makes a shoot action with any weapons without the silent trait, all enemies within 12 inches can make an intelligence check. If they do pass, they immediately become ready, and in the end phase, each player may move their fighters that are not ready 6 inches in any direction as well. For the rewards on this one, when it comes to experience points, earn 1 point of experience for each participant that takes part in the battle. Also 1 experience point for each enemy that you manage to take out of action as well. Also, whoever is the last leader that is standing, that leader earns D6 experience points as well. For reputation, all the gangs involved earn 1 point of reputation just for showing up. And also, if you manage to take out an enemy, a leader out of action, you also earn yourself 2 experience points, as well as earn 3 experience points for whoever gang is the leader, is the last man standing on this one as well. So, pretty interesting way to build up some reputation, which is good for a lot of our gangs because the Chain Breakers are brand new for this one as well. And that pretty much makes it the scenario for this one. So with the scenario over with, let's go and talk about the battle plan real quick. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we are playing on a 4x4 Zone Mortalis battlefield, and we are spread all over the dang place on this battlefield as well. For the most part, we do have some sectors for the most part that are pretty much under our control. For the most part, most of my guys are located in the upper right-hand corner is where most of my forces are located at. My buddy Warlord Ace with his 9/11 Saar, they're located in the upper left-hand corner. The Sleeping Dogs of House Delaque are located in the bottom left-hand corner. And at the same time, the bottom right-hand corner is where most of the Slave Ogryns are located at as well. And pretty much the plan for this one is just try to survive as long as I can. I do have 2 heavy bolters in this battle. I have one guy who's armed with a heavy bolter. I got another one who's armed with a twin-linked heavy stubber. So that should really help me out for this this one as well, so I definitely got the lockdown on firepower. However, I am fighting Slave Ogryns. I've never played against those guys before, so it'll be kind of interesting to see exactly what ends up happening. Pretty much, I'm just going to try to survive as long as I can and try to kill as many people as possible, and hopefully I can win it that way and make my opponents come to me. I'm trying to play defensively this time around because my gang is pretty high ranked up there in our campaign, so you know everyone has it out for you if you're number one, so I got to keep that in mind. So with the battle plan over, let's go talk about deployment real fast. So first of all, let's go talk about the center deployment in the middle of the battlefield here. As you can see, we have our 4 gang leaders located thusly. On the left-hand side, that is Taijin Khan. He's an Ogryn overboss. He's got Furnace Plate, Last Cutter, and Frag Grenades. He's got the Runaway special ability as well as Commanding Presence rule. And yes, that is a Warhammer Fantasy Battle Ogre. I am fully aware of that. It's just that there's no miniatures out right now for the Slave Ogryns, so we're just got the proxy until miniatures come out. And if you don't like using proxies in battlefields, well... oh well. Alright, so next to him on the top of the right hand side there, that is Riptor. That is my gang leader. He is equipped with mesh armor. He's got a master crafted bolt gun with an attached grenade launcher. He's got a reclaimed auto pistol as well as a chain sword. He's packing a cult icon as well as a drop brig. He's got the commanding presence as well as mentor ability as well. And that's where my gang leader is located at for this one. Up next, over into the top left-hand corner for the Delaque of the Sleeping Dogs, that is Mr. Sinister. He is a gang leader equipped with mesh armor. He's got a long rifle with a mono sight as well as a gun shroud. He's also packing a last pistol. He's got photo goggles as well as commanding presence as well as overseer ability. And then finally on the far right-hand side for 911, that is Bustin' 9. He's equipped with a body glove with mesh armor. He's got a combo weapon, which is a combination of last gun and plasma gun. He's got a last pistol as well as a respirator. He's got the overseer as well as commanding presence ability. At the same time, you can also see that we also have some several gangers as well. As you can see, he's got a couple of 911 Van Saar in the left-hand corner near Mr. Sinister. And we have different fighters spread throughout. So in the bottom left-hand corner, like I said before, is where most of my friend has most of his gang located at. Now, if you notice that the rosters during the process of the game and the introduction process, you realize that some of these gangers that are on the battlefield shouldn't actually not be here, and that's because several of them had the grievous injury rolls. It wasn't anything malicious or anything like that. It's just that my buddy Sergeant Sigmar, when he rolled for his random gangers, he just kind of picked them down the list. He forgot to look at their injuries, so there's actually several members on this battlefield who will not be here in later rounds of the game, and that's because a lot of these guys have serious grievous injuries on those guys. So if you're wondering why there'll be such a huge reduction of Delaques in the future rounds, that is why. So like I said before, my buddy made a mistake. It was an honest mistake, so no biggie there. Up at the top, you got Painless Joe. That guy's not going to be in this battle report here for a second because he's injured. Next to him on the left-hand side is Flamer Fred. He's a ganger's equipped with flak armor. He's got a flamer as well as a last pistol, as well as photo goggles. Right next to him is Johnner St. Jude, who's a champion. He's equipped with flak armor, twin last pistols. He's also got hotshot power packs for his last pistols, as well as gun shrouds. He's also equipped with photo goggle. He's got gunfighter as well as skateboarder skill. And the back left-hand corner there, that's another guy named Slick. That guy is, sorry, not Slick. His name is Mr. Smug is his name, and he's also got a grievous injury on him as well, so he will not be here in the next photo here in a second. And then over there on the right-hand side there, we have Korgul. Korgul is a oh, sorry, that's not Korgul. That's Shan Yu. I'm sorry. I do apologize for that. Shan Yu is a Slave Ogryn. He's got Furnace Plate. He's got an Arc Welder as well as Augmented Fist. He's also packing Blasting Charges. He's got the Loyal, Runaway, and Limited Learning Capacity special rules, and he's also got the Headbutt skill. And that pretty much makes the troops here on the bottom left-hand corner. And over here on the top left-hand corner of the battlefield, for the most part, is where most of the House Van Saar guys are located at for 9/11. Starting out the top right-hand corner, over on the far right-hand side, that guy is named Ricochet. His name is a ganger's armor with a body glove. He's got mesh armor. He's packing a suppression laser. He's got a power knife as well as a respirator. Now, right next on the left-hand side, that is Tough Shakes. And the same kind of mistake happened earlier. My buddy Boiler Ace wasn't paying attention to his injuries on that one, so he will not be participating later on in the battle report because we found out he actually has injuries. Right next to him on the bottom there, though, that is Dozer, who is a juvie. He's equipped with body glove. He's got mesh armor as well as a last pistol. On the left-hand side there, that is Rune Dog. He's a juvie. He's equipped with body glove as well as mesh armor. He's got twin last pistols as well as a respirator. And he's also packing rag grenades. And finally, right down there in the bottom, that is Tough Shakes. Sorry, not Tough Shakes. That's Soldier is his name. Soldier is a ganger's equipped with a body glove. He's got mesh armor as well as a last carbine. He's got a last pistol, a respirator, as well as choke gas grenades. In the top left-hand corner of the battlefield is where some of my guys are located at. As you can see there, right there in the top right-hand corner, that is Mondo. Sorry, not Mondo. His name is Zero. I apologize. He's one of my gangers. He's got flak armor as well as a reclaimed auto pistol as well as a maul. Right next on the left-hand side, that is Reptile. He's another juvie. He's equipped with flak armor, stub gun with dum-dum rounds. He's got a maul as well as frag grenades. On the left-hand side there, that is Jockey, who's another ganger's armor with flak armor, reclaimed auto gun as well as a maul. And you can't see him, but right across from Zero, right behind that little concrete wall there, that's an Arachnorig character for the 9/11 guys. That guy's name is Warjack is his name, and he's located there as well. That guy's also got 3 servo arms as well as a plasma gun as we got packing on him as well, so that dude is definitely pretty deadly and kitted out for kill. And finally, in the bottom right-hand corner is where most of my buddy his friend's wife Fabrice has placed most of her Slave Ogryns. Up on the very top there, that guy's name is Light Blaster is his name. He's a Lobo Slave. He's equipped with Furnace Place. He's got a Storm Welder as well as a Spudjacker. He's got the Lobotomized, Limited Learning Capacity, and Slow-Witted special rules, and he's also got the Runaway special rule on him as well. Next to him, right in there in the middle of that little slime patch right there, that is Burps O Blood. He's another Slave Ogryn. He's equipped with Furnace Plate. He's got a Heavy Rock Saw as well as a Stim Slug Stash. He's loyal. He's got the Runaway skill, Limited Learning Capacity, as well as the Headbutt skill. Right next to him on the bottom there on the right-hand side, that is Korgul. He's a Ogryn Underboss, so he's like a champion for this gang. He's equipped with Furnace Plate. He's got paired Automated Fists as well as Frag Grenades. He's also got a Stim Slug Stash. He's got the Runaway as well as Iron Man ability, which means that he could ignore all flesh wounds on his traits until he runs out of flesh wound counters. And then finally on the left-hand side, that is Dig Dug. That is a Lobo Slave. He's got a Furnace Plate. He's got a 2-handed hammer as well as a Stim Slug Stash. He also suffers from the Lobotomized, Limited Curling Capacity, and as well as Low-Witted and Runaway skills as well. And that pretty much makes the plumbing here in the bottom right-hand corner. And finally, the top right-hand corner is where the last of my gangers are located. Up in the front there, that is Stubber is his name. Stubber is my champion. He's equipped with Mesh Armor. He's got a Heavy Stubber as well as a Spencer on that thing, so that way he can shoot at it and move at the same time. He's also equipped with the Drop Rig. He's got a Maul as well as a Hurl skill. Right next on the left-hand side is Master Blaster, my Stig Shambler. He's equipped with Flak Armor. He's got a Pole Arm as well as Twin-Linked Heavy Stubber. He's also got Intelligent Control as well as Move and Shoot special rules. On the left-hand side there, that is Scorpion. He's another one of my gangers. He's equipped with Flak Armor as well as a Reclaimed Auto Gun as well as a Maul. And then right next to him on the right-hand side is Johnny. He's another ganger who's equipped with Flak Armor. He's got a Plasma Gun Maul as well as a Stub Gun and Dum Dum rounds. And that is pretty much my gang on the upper right-hand corner on this one. So with our deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and all 4 of us roll off for initiative to see who has priority. So that goes directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Slave Ogryns get to go first. So Smells Like Febreze decides to activate her very first activation, which is Taijin Khan, her Ogryn Overboss, and he declares a charge directly into Riptor. As you can see, that they're both now engaged in close combat, which is absolutely terrifying because this guy's got a Last Cutter, which is like the last cannon version of a close combat weapon for these guys, and I'm absolutely terrified to see exactly what that guy can do in close combat. And as you can see in this photo, he has no problem whatsoever putting the hurt directly onto Riptor. Managed to put a serious injury on my gang leader, so because of that he goes crashing face down on the ground, and he is completely at the mercy of Taijin Khan as well as the Chainbreakers as well. And to make matters worse, he's also packing 2 flesh wounds. So all it's going to take is somebody to actually run into him and finish him off the coup de grace, or roll a flesh wound during the end phase, and my leader is dead, which is all kinds of horrible. So things are not going that great right off the bat. So for the next activation, goes directly to my friend Warlord Ace, who decides to activate his gang leader Bussanine. Bussanine moves his normal Moon Allowance over to the left-hand side, and takes another basic action to open fire with his Plasma Last Gun combination, actually opening up with both weapons directly into Mr. Sinister on the left-hand side. Managed to put a serious injury as well as a flesh wound off on that guy, so because of that, the leader of the Sleeping Dogs goes crashing face down the ground, and he is currently bleeding out as well. And he is at the complete mercy of the Van Saar at this point. So I get to go next. The very first person I decide to activate is my gang champion, Stubber. And unfortunately, since everybody's within 6 inches away from each other, I can't do any group activations, so Stubber is all alone on this one. So I take a basic action to aim with my Heavy Stubber, and another basic action to open fire with it because he has a dispenser, and I aim it directly at Reckless. Reckless is the other guy who's all the way across the end of the hallway there as well. And the reason why I'm taking a basic action to aim with that is because he's in a darkened corridor, which means I do suffer some penalties to shoot at him, and that's the reason why I take a little bit of patience to, get +1 to hit on that one. And plus, that guy's packing a grenade launcher, so that makes it really super deadly. So I cut loose with Heavy Stubber. Not only did I manage to hit him twice, I also managed to wound him twice as well, causing him to go out of action with a grievous injury. So just like that, first blood on the scenario goes directly to the Jury of House Cawdor. So that at least kind of balances the scale a little bit because my leader is currently bleeding out on the ground. So up next, my friend Sergeant Sigmar decides to activate Newbie. Newbie does a double movement, moving 12 inches across the battlefield, jumping over the fallen body of his gang leader, Sergeant Sigmar, and just kind of lands right there in the middle of the fray. Now, granted, it does open up Newbie from being attacked from both Busta-9 as well as from Ricochet over there on the left-hand side, but it's actually a pretty good call. That way, nobody can really charge his leader without having to take on Newbie first. And let's face it, that's what Juvies are there for. Juvies are there to be bullet sponges for the most part. And so that makes it the next activation for Sergeant Sigmar. So with that, we go full circle back to my friend Smells Like Febreze. She then activates Light Blaster is his name. That's a Lobo slave who's armed with a Storm Wielder. And this is where we actually get to see exactly how these new House of Chain weapons work for the Goliaths. Now, in case you're unaware about how these rules work, a Storm Wielder opens up with 3 rapid fire dice, which is absolutely a lot of firepower that you can actually dish out with this gun. Absolutely terrifying exactly to see what that thing can do. To make matters worse, the the Storm Wielder is also really powerful too. Not to mention that it's got up to 8 to 16 inch range. You got +1 for the close range. It's got strength 5 weaponry with 1 damage. Also has ammo roll of 3, and it causes rapid fire 3 rapid fire. It's also got the shock as well as the unstable rules as well. And to make things worse, it has this reckless rule in front of it. Now, if you're wondering how reckless works, pretty much what happens is that when you open up on all eligible targets within range and within your player's vision arc, you roll off to see exactly who receives the receiving end of all the blasts from the Storm Wielder. So it is kind of unpredictable. Very powerful weapon, but extremely unpredictable. And the worst part is if you have friendly fighters who are in front of the Storm Wielder when it goes off, you have a chance of hitting your own guys. So it's actually kind of a cool kind of kamikaze type weapon as well. So my buddy Smells Like Febreze, she decides to open up with the Storm Wielder directly into my Cawdor guys across the little chasm there. And the worst part about it goes directly into my Stig Shambler as well, which is all kinds of horrible for me. And here was the crazy part. When he rolled for the number of fire shots he got with his rapid fire dice, he ended up with 7 shots is what he ended up doing with. Rolled not a single ammo check on that part as well. 7 freaking shots with that strength 5 weapon, which is all kinds of horrible. The only thing that saved me was 2 factors. One, Dig Dug has a 6-up ballistic skill, which means that he has to roll 6 in order to hit. And that's the only thing that pretty much saved me on that one for the most part, okay? And that's the thing that kind of saved him. However, with that being said, 3 of these got through to my Stig Shambler. Luckily for me, though, Master Blaster has 4 wounds, so he is okay for now, and he's pinned, but he is 3/4 of the way dead. And that thing is incredibly powerful, the Storm Wielder. So now I'm definitely afraid of these Slave Ogryns. They might not be able to hit a bronze side of a barn, but you give them a powerful enough weapon, enough shots, they'll get the job done, and that's absolutely terrifying. So with that activation, we jump across the table to Warlord Ace, who then decides to activate Warjack, his Arachnorig robot, and he decides to open fire twice with his plasma gun. Managed to hit the first time he opened fire with his plasma gun, he actually missed all of his shots, rolled a bunch of 1s for the most part. But the second time he opened this plasma gun, though, managed to put a serious injury directly off onto 0 as well. I got really lucky on that one because it could have been all kinds of bad, but he is currently laying face down on the ground right now, and he is bleeding out. So for my next activation, they activate Johnny, who then takes a basic action to aim his plasma gun and another basic action to open fire with it directly across the battlefield towards the Lobo Slave Light Blaster, because believe it or not, he's actually the closest target to me. Unfortunately, though, I missed all my shots, so nothing much really happened there. So that part was pretty demoralizing. So with that activation over with, we go directly to the Sleeping Dogs, and Sergeant Sigmar activates Slick. He's a Ganger's armor with a bolt gun. He's got photo goggles as well as flak armor, as well as gun shroud on his bolt gun. Basically just a simple action move forward and takes another basic action, open fire with his bolt gun directly across the battlefield into one of the Juvies from 9/11 as well. So not only does he manage to hit the brand new guy Dozer, which is the new name of the Juvie, not only does he manage to hit him, he also manages to put a serious injury as well as a flesh wound on him as well. So because of that, the Juvie goes crashing face down on the ground. He is currently bleeding out, which is not so great for 9/11 at this point. So with that, we jump back to Smells Like Febreze and activate Shan Yu. Sorry, not Shan Yu. Burps of Blood, that's his name. That's her Slave Ogren, who's got a heavy rock saw as well as a stem slum sash, and he actually just moves up, hit double movement directly towards the center of the battlefield, trying to link up with her gang leader, her Ogryn overboss for the most part. So from there, we get to activate to 9/11. So Warlord Ace decides to activate Rune Dog, which is actually one of his Juvies, and he goes charging directly into Reptile, which is also one of my Juvies as well, and engage those guys in close combat. So it's a Juve fight between both of these young fighters, up-and-coming fighters. Unfortunate for me, though, Rune Dog, I guess, just wanted it more, unfortunately. So because of that, he just managed to put the hurt directly onto Reptile, and Reptile goes immediately out of action, suffering an out cold result on that as well on that one. So I got pretty lucky on that one because he is to skip recovery. He's just out of action for the rest of the battle report. But at the same time, though, man, my guys are slowly dropping like flies, which is never a good thing. So for my next activation, I decide to activate the Master Blaster. So the Stig Shambler spends a basic action to get back on his feet again, and he also spends another basic action to cut loose with his Twin Link Stub gun directly across the battlefield to Bussanine, who is the leader of the 9/11 band Saars, who's actually the closest target within line of sight of him. So that part was pretty epic. When it was all said and done, I managed to hit that guy 5 times. Of the 5 times I hit him, 3 of them wounded, and because of that, he rarely goes out of action on that one as well, getting an out cold result for that part. So because of that, the leader of the 9/11, Bussanine, is currently out of action now, and at the same time, net myself some nice reputation points, as well as some good experience for my Stig Shambler Master Blaster, because he can definitely use the skill development at this point. So from there, we then jump across the tabletop directly to Sergeant Sigmarine, who then activates Flamer Fred of the Sleeping Dogs. Flamer Fred does a double movement going directly next to Slick, so that way they both can start taking the offensive directly towards 9/11, as well as try to liberate their currently bleeding out gang leader. And up next, of course, my friend Smells Like Febreze then activates Dig Dug, her Lobo slave armed with a 2-handed hammer, who spends a double action to move up as quick as he can directly towards Riptor, because being surrounded by a circle of Slave Ogryns is always the best way to go out, as far as I'm concerned. So up next, my friend then activates Soldier's his name. Soldier from 9/11 decides to get activated next. He just kind of moves out of cover for a simple action and opens fire with his last carbine directly into Zero. But unfortunately, though, he missed his shots, so nothing much really happened there. From there, I then activate Jockey, who spends a basic action to move, simple action to move up forward, and another basic action to cut loose with his reclaimed autogun, aiming directly at Soldier. But unfortunately for me, I also missed my shots on that one, so nothing much came from that. So from there, we then drop across all the way back to the other side of the battlefield again to my buddy Sergeant Sigmarine. He gets to go next. So because that activates Johnner. Johnner St. Jew actually does a double action, moving up as quick as he can, moving a full 10 inches along the left-hand side of the battlefield, trying to make his way up to the top of the battlefield to help out his fellow sleeping dogs. And with that, we start the whole cycle over again, going back to Smells Like Febreze, and then activates her underboss, Korgol. That guy spends a double movement to move up right behind Dig Dug, trying to link up with their gang leader, Taijin Khan, in the center of the battlefield as well. So up next, my friend Warlord Ace decides to activate his ganger Ricochet. Ricochet actually spends a base simple action to move up forward to get closer with his suppression laser, opens up with a short burst directly into Newbie, managed to hit that guy's center of mass with that shotgun blast of laser energy. And not only does he manage to hit him, he also knocks him back an inch and also puts him out of action with an out cold result as well. So just like that, Newbie ends up going out of action. He skips recovery, of course, but he pretty much gets taken out of action in defense of his gang leader, which is actually kind of heartwarming, all things considered. So for my next activation, then activate Scorpion. I do spend a basic action aim, give me +1 to hit, as well as another basic action to open fire with his autogun directly at Dig Dug, who's across the chasm from him. But unfortunately for me, though, I missed my shots, so nothing much happens there. And then, Smells Like Febreze. She decides to activate Shan Yu, the Slave Ogryn. And Shan Yu, of course, is packing a set of blasting charges on this one. So he moves up his normal 5 inches, getting right there, right behind that little rubble pile there. And then he chucks a blasting charge right into the middle of the gang right there. Tries to open up with those grenades. Now, originally, Shan Yu has a 5-up ballistic skill, which means that 1/3 of the time he's only hitting, the other 2 times he misses. So he does try to chuck the blasting charge. It does miss. And because it misses, of course, you got to scatter. So you got to roll the arrow dice as well as roll d6 to see exactly where it goes. Well, Smells Like Febreze rolled the scatter dice and actually got a direct hit anyway, so it landed right smack dab in the middle of their formation and exploded with a huge 5-inch blast template of strength 5 hits, -1 AP, all kinds of craziness, and just kind of blows up right there in the middle. Which just goes to show, with blasting charges, even when you miss, you still hit. So that kind of shows you how powerful those blasting charges are. After the smoke clear, it managed to blast Flamer Fred as well as Slick 1 inch in either direction. Just kind of scatters them like the wind is what it ended up doing, putting both serious injuries on both those guys as well as flesh wounds. So because of that, 2 more members of the Sleeping Dogs are currently on the ground bleeding out, and things are looking extremely grim for my buddy Sergeant Sigmarine. So after that, we jump across the battlefield directly back to me again. So because I decided to activate Zero, and Zero goes charging directly into Rune Dog, the juvie there on the top of the battlefield, because I'm going to try to take that guy out and get some revenge for him taking out my favorite juvie reptile. And of course, Zero had no problem whatsoever putting that guy out of action in close combat. Managed to stove his head in with his maul and putting that juvie out of action with an out cold result as well. And that pretty much makes up the action phase on this one. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. So with the top of the end phase, we go directly to the bottle test. We go directly to Sergeant Sigmarine, and Sergeant Sigmarine has to take a bottle test, and unfortunately for him, the Sleeping Dogs also fail that bottle test as well. And if I remember correctly, this is also when Sergeant Sigmarine decides to kind of bottle out himself and manage to take all of his fighters and leave the game at this point, because he doesn't realize he doesn't want to lose any more gangers than he already has at this point. At which point, I also had to take a bottle test as well, and as you can see in this photo, I failed my bottle test, so because of that, in the beginning of my round, all of my fighters will need to take cool checks to see if they actually run off the battlefield or whether they stay on the ground and fight. And I'm going to try to stick it out as long as I can, because I need to get another victory under my belt, because I've been losing a couple of times these last few battle reports. And to make matters worse, however, when it comes to my gang leader Riptor, he rolled up a out of action results. Because of that, he suffers a grievous injury and he goes directly into recovery as well. So just like that, my leader, who just got out of a grievous injury and out of recovery, gets sent right back in again his very first game back. So that part is extremely sad. So with that, takes us directly to the end of turn number 1. As you can see, here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield, so that way you can see exactly what's going on. As you can see, the Sleeping Dogs are no longer participating in the battle report. My buddy Sergeant Sigmarine decided to voluntarily bottle out, and he pulled his troops out of action as well. As you can see, there's only 3 gangs left on the battlefield, and the upper left-hand corner is slowly being dominated by 911 of House Van Saar. Same thing with the center of the battlefield. That area is being kind of claimed by the Slave Ogryns and the Chain Breakers, and of course, you got a couple of my guys located in the upper right-hand corner with the Jury as well. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and the 3 of us roll off for priority to see who will be going first. Alright, so go directly to the top of turn number 2, and my gang gets to go first on this one, so I managed to get the priority. So the first thing I do, of course, is I activate my gang leader, my gang champion Stubber. He moves back his normal rule allowance in order to get to the middle of the formation. Then he spends another basic action to open fire with his heavy Stubber across the chasm directly into Dig Dug, because let's face it, if anybody's just show my boys how to shoot, it's definitely going to be my champion. And all kinds of epicness ended up happening. Managed to shoot that guy, managed to take him out of action as well. I think managed to hit him 3 times, wound him twice, and it puts him directly out of action. He suffers a lessons learned injury result, so he goes in recovery. But at the same time, though, Dig Dug also learns 2 points of experience points on that part, which is actually all kinds of good for him. So yes, managed to kill one of the very first Slave Ogryns in the battle report so far. However, what was not so great though was Warjack, the Arachno Rig. He basically charged directly into Mondo, managed to put a critical injury onto that ganger as well, so because of that, I will need to pay money in order to save my ganger or have him suffer and die, of course, which is always a bad thing and something I gotta worry about, so that part's kind of rough. And then again, smells like Febreze. She then decides to activate Shan Yu. Shan Yu decides to move up his normal moon allowance of just 5 inches, heading directly towards that darkened corridor in the middle there. And once again, he lobs another blasting charge directly down that hallway. And unfortunately for Smells Like Febreze, she also missed her shot. Now, because she missed her shot, she has to scatter her dice to see exactly what ends up happening. Well, it ends up happening, the grenade bounces forward 2 inches anyways, and then it goes off and just blasts that entire hallway in a huge 5-inch blast template. Man, blasting charges, even when you miss, you still hit, which just shows you how powerful blasting charges are in this game. As you can see in this photo, Ricochet did not stand a chance whatsoever. He got blasted all the way down the other side of the hallway and suffered a hobbling injury as well. And so because of that, he has -1 to his movement for the rest of the campaign, which is totally insane. And I'm actually thinking about maybe buying some blasting charges for my own gang, because it looks really impressive the way these Slave Ogryns have been using them. So with that, we go directly back to my gang again for my next activation and activate Johnny. Johnny moves up his normal mood allowance, so that way he gets within closer range of his plasma gun, and he opens up with his plasma gun at the low pulse, hitting rapid fire directly across the battlefield at Burps of Blood, which is the next closest Slave Ogryn to him. And just like that, I managed to hit him twice and wound him 2 times, managed to put that guy out of action as well, and giving him a eye injury, so he has -1 to his ballistic skill, which is all kinds of awesome, because now that is 2 Slave Ogryns I have taken out of action so far in our campaign. However, what was not so great was in the top left-hand corner of the battlefield. My friend Warlord Ace decides to activate Soldier. Soldier moves up his normal moon allowance directly to that little corridor there and gets into the open space with Warjack. From there, he decides to open fire with a burst fire from his last carbine, aims it directly at Zero, my gang over there in the far top right-hand corner of the screen. And he also managed to put a serious injury on him as well, so things are not looking very good for my gang in the top left-hand corner of the battlefield. They're just slowly getting chopped to pieces by the members of 911. So for my next activation, I then go to Jockey, but of course I have to take a cool check for him because my gang is bottling out, and unfortunately for me, Jockey did fail his cool check, and because of that, he flees off the battlefield because homie don't play that game, which is kind of making sense because I'm getting my butt handed to me on this one. So from there, we jump back really back to my friend Smells Like Febreze, then activates our gang leader Taijin Khan. Taijin Khan moves up his normal moon allowance and then spends another action to fling a frag grenade directly to my Styx Shambler, Master Blaster, as well as Johnny as well. And just like the last time, he actually has a 5-up ballistic skill, so usually he's missing his shots. However, when he threw the frag grenade actually just landed just short of the little cover place that my character's looking at. So because of that, he did miss his shot. But when he scattered it to the upper left-hand corner, another 2 inches. So it just let the grenade go behind the fence, and then let it blow up behind the fence and behind the cover as well, which just shows you how dangerous frag grenades can be even when you do miss. So as you can see, even though the grenade kind of missed its shot, it still landed right smack dab between Johnny as well as Master Blaster, and just like that, kaboom, a massive frag grenade blast goes off with a 3-inch template. And as you can see, it also caused Johnny the Boy, managed to pin him, so he's perfectly fine as well. However, it also managed to hit as well as wound Master Blaster, which was not so great for the most part. So he gets hit, and he's also kind of laying there on the ground as well, which is actually all kinds of sad for me. So with that, we go directly to my next turn. I didn't activate Scorpion, but unfortunately for me, though, he fails his cool check. So Scorpion decides to bottle out and, take off for the hills because he doesn't want to see how the way this game's going to end. And for the very last activation of the game, Dig Dug the Lobo Slave, he actually moves up his double movement allowance to get right next to Korgul. So because of that, Taijin Khan, Korgul, as well as Dig Dug, they're now perfectly in line to make their assault directly to the top right-hand corner where my gang is located at. So with the action phase over, we go directly to the end phase. And during the end phase, what they do is take bottle tests, and unfortunately for my friend Warlord Ace, he does manage to fail his bottle test on this one, so he will be bottling out as well. And Warjack is the current guy with the highest leadership, which is Arachnoid, and so because of that, these guys will need to take cool checks as well to see if anything happens to them. Unfortunately for Warlord Ace, Dozer is still currently seriously injured. He is still currently bleeding out on the ground, not being able to do much of anything. And the exact same thing is currently happening to Zero, who is currently at the mercy of 2 members of 911. If he gets bum rushed, he's going to be put out of action with a coup de grace. And then finally, my friend Smells Like Febreze also fails her bottle test as well. So because of that, she will need to take cool checks for the rest of her gang starting on round 3 to see if those guys end up sticking around or not for the most part. And so with that pretty much ends up her number 2 for this battle report so far. So that takes directly to the end of turn number 2 at this part, and at this part, my friend Warlord Ace decides to kind of just voluntarily bottle out, and he decides to vacate the premises with the rest of his gang members. He doesn't really want to lose any more guys he already has, because I don't blame him. He's fearing blasting charges at this point, and he decides to run away. And like I said, I'm pretty desperate though, because I've been losing a couple of my battle reports so far, and I want to really get a win for my gang, so I decide to stick it out for the most part. So the only 2 gangs that are left are the Slave Ogryns or the Chainbreakers, who are assembled right there in the middle of the battle. Making their way directly towards me. You can see that Shan Yu's back there on the left-hand side, getting ready to come as quickly as he can to drive the rest of his gang members, and the rest of my gang is looking in the top right-hand corner as well, trying to stand their ground. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and both my friends and I decide to roll off for initiative to see who goes first. So I get to go first on this one for turn number 3 for the Cawdor on this part. So because of the first thing I do is I activate my Styx Shambler. My Styx Shambler was pinned last time for my frag grenade, so he gets back on his feet with a basic action, and spends a death with basic action, open fire with his Twin Link Stubbers. Managed to hit both Taijin Khan as well as Korgul. Managed to put 2 wounds on both those guys. Unfortunately though, both those guys have 3 wounds. They still have a wound apiece, and they are currently pinned at this point laying on the ground. So, at least I got some payback with some automatic gunfire, which is kind of nice. However, both these characters decide to get back on their feet again using a group activation this time. Taijin Khan activates Korgul, so because of that, both of them get back on their feet, spending a basic action to do that, and they both spend a basic action lobbing frag grenades at my gangers. Taijin Khan, however, his grenade misses and goes way off to the right-hand side and doesn't cause any problems. However, Korgul, though, lands a perfect 6 with his grenade and lands right behind the cover that my Styx Shambler Master Blaster is located behind. And as you can see in this photo, the frag grenade goes right behind that little fence there and also goes off. Managed to shower Master Blaster in a wave of shrapnel and debris as that grenade goes off. And to make matters worse, not only does he manage to hit Stubber, he managed to push Stubber back as well as pin him, and he also managed to blow Master Blaster directly off the ledge into the chasm, and he goes falling right through the pit of despair. And because of that, he suffers and lessons learned results for his injuries, earning 2 points of experience, which is kind of nice, but at the same time, though, going into recovery. And I suppose the lesson here is to just get out when the getting is good. At this point of the battle report, ladies and gentlemen, I realized that I'm not going to be sticking around anymore on this one, so I decided to pull out my gang as well, and this ends up being a victory for the Slave Ogryns of the Chainbreakers. So, for the very first battle report, the Slave Ogryns managed to pull a victory on that part. We're going to go directly to the post game because this battle report is now officially over.
it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, now it's time for the post game. First of all, we're going to start with the Sleeping Dogs. The Sleeping Dogs suffered 3 injuries on this one. We have Reckless as well as Flamer Fred. Both those characters suffered grievous injuries, while Newbie suffered an out cold result for his. For their advancements, 2 members of the Sleeping Dogs did advance. Mr. Sinister leveled up to level 4, getting +1 to his ballistic skill, so now he's 2 up on his ballistic skill on that one. And Johnner St. Jude also leveled up to level 3, earning +1 to his movement, so now he has movement 6, so he's actually pretty deadly now to get into groups with his opponents to start shooting the pieces. From his territory, from his settlement, he earned 1 point of reputation as well as 10 credits. From his Narco Den, he scored another 10 credits, and of course his Generatorium as well as his Stinger Mold Sprawl don't provide any bonuses this time around. And he ended up getting a grand total of 20 credits in all. He took all 20 of those credits and put them directly into his stash. For his reputation on this one, he gets 1 reputation from the settlement as well as one from the scenario, and that increases his grand total to 25 points reputation in total. His new record right now is at 5 wins as well as 7 losses, and his new gang rating now is at 2,631 points. Alright, so after the Sleeping Dogs, we now have 911 of House Van Saar on this one. So this is Warlord Ace's gang. For his injuries, he actually suffered 3 injuries on this one. That was Busta 9 as well as Rune Dog. Both those guys suffered an out cold result, so because of that they are completely fine. However, Ricochet, though, suffered a hobbling injury. He does go to recovery, and he also loses 1 inch to his movement allowance. So because of that, he's only moving 3 at this point. From his territories, from his settlement, he earned 1 point of reputation as well as 60 credits. And from his corpse farm, he actually managed to earn 60 credits from the corpse farm as well. And the reason why is because I decided not to spend any money in order to save my ganger Mondo. Mondo suffered a critical injury, and he just kind of died at that point. So that part was kind of sad. So that part was kind of, all kinds of bad for me. Anyways, with those 60 credits, he also combined those together and earned for a grand total of 120 credits. With those 120 credits, he purchased a rad gun for Warjack, his Arachna rig. So now that guy's packing 2 serval claws as well as a plasma gun as well as a rad gun as well as a light carapace armor and twin-linked heavy last carbine, so that guy is kit out for all kinds of kill. And with the rest of his money, he purchased frag grenades for tank as well as Nero as well. For his reputation, earns 1 point of reputation from his settlement as well as 1 from his scenario, giving a grand total of 28 points of reputation in total. His new record now is at 3 wins as well as 6 losses, and his new gang rating now is at 2,865 points. So in second place for this scenario is my gang, the Jury. For my injuries, I actually suffered quite a bit of them. Riptor suffered a grievous injury, so because of that, my leader goes directly into recovery. Same thing with Mondo. Mondo suffered a critical injury on this one, and instead of paying the credits to save him, I just let that guy die. So because of that, Mondo is currently dead, and he gets eliminated from my roster, earning the 60 credits from the corpse farm that 911 managed to own. For Reptile, he did suffer an out cold result, so he was perfectly fine, and Master Blaster earned a lessons learned injury, and because it gets +2 to his experience points on that one. For his advancement, Scorpions leveled up to level 2 on this one, so he gets +1 to his ballistic skill, so now he's ballistic skill 3, and Master Blaster also leveled up to level 2 with all the experience he generated, and I gave him the Munitioneer skill, which means any single time he rolls an ammo roll or anybody else near him, they can re-roll that score, which will be actually kind of nice for that part. For my territories, I earned 1 point of reputation from my settlement as well as 20 credits. For my old ruins, I earned another 20 credits from that as well as 20 credits from my slag furnace. That gave me a grand total of 70 credits, and with that 70 credits, I purchased a grenade launcher equipped with frag and crack grenades, and I gave that to my ganger Scorpion as well. I then took the 5 remaining credits I had left over and put it directly into the stash. For my reputation, I earned 1 point of reputation from my settlement as well as 1 from the scenario. I also earned 2 more points of reputation for taking out Busta 9, which was the leader of the Fansar 911. And that brings my grand total to 36 points of reputation in total. My new record now is at 5 wins as well as 5 losses, and my new gang rating now is at 2,460 points. So with that, we go directly to the Chain Breakers, the current winners of this battle report, which is the Slave Ogryns gang. For their injuries, 2 members of the gang suffered injuries on this one. Burps of Blood suffered an eye injury, so he has -1 to his ballistic skill, and he goes into recovery. And Light Blaster, the Lobo Slave, earned lessons learned, and he earns himself 2 additional experience points. And he also goes to recovery as well. For advancements, Taijin Khan managed to level up to level 2 on this one, getting +1 to his toughness. So now he has toughness 6, so he is all kinds of hard to kill at this point, which is kind of appropriate for Slave Ogryns, I think. From his territories, from his settlement, he earned 1 point of reputation from his settlement as well as 60 credits, and they also generated another recruit. This time they recruited a Lobo Slave named Dark Blaster for absolutely free from their settlement. So all kinds of good things are happening for the Chain Breakers. And from their Collapsed Dome, they decided to take that as their brand new territory, and they generated 4d6 times 10 credits and gave them a grand total of 110 credits as well. With their cool combination, they end up with 170 credits in total. With those 170 credits, they purchased blasting charges for Taijin Khan, because why not at this point? And they gave Taijin Khan's frag grenades to Dig Dug, and from there they purchased an augmented fist as well as a storm welder for Dark Blaster as well, and from there they took the 5 remaining credits and they put it directly into their stash. For the reputation, they earned 1 point of reputation from their territory as well as 7 points from their scenario, bringing their grand total to 8 points reputation in total. Their new record now is at 1 win as well as 0 losses, and their new gang rank now is at 1,503 points. So that's good for this one, you guys. It was pretty awesome seeing exactly how the Slave Ogryns kind of throw it down in the Underhive. I am now absolutely terrified of those guys because it just shows how tough they currently are. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.